The moment you grasp it, there's a shift in consciousness from mind to being, from time to presence. Eckhart Tolle. In the modern world, thinking has become a disease for far too many people. Thought becomes a disease because the mind is out of balance. About 80 to 90% of people's thoughts are both repetitive and useless. Not only that, but these thoughts are commonly negative by nature and thus harmful. If you focus on your thoughts over the next few days, you can observe this in yourself probably. This kind of compulsive thinking can be an addiction and cause you to lose vital energy from your being. The good news is there is a way to break this pattern and free yourself from the negative spiral that this can cause. The first step is one of vital importance. It is realizing that you are not your mind. Far too many of us are walking around on autopilot. We walk around chatting with ourselves incessantly and letting our untrained, conditioned, and childlike minds run our lives. Can you see easier to look at them objectively? Once you separate yourself from your mind, you can pull your attention away from it. You can focus on the sights, sounds, and experiences that are happening to you. You can focus on the now. According to the author, the single most vital step in your journey towards enlightenment is this. Learn to disidentify yourself from your mind. Every time you create a gap in the stream of the mind, the light of your consciousness grows stronger. The next topic is ego. As you grow up, you form a mental image of who you are based on your personal and cultural conditioning. We call this the phantom self, the ego. It consists of the mind activity and can only be kept going through constant thinking. The ego is a dangerous thing. It is only concerned with the past and the future. It has no concern whatsoever with the present. Just like you are not your mind, you are not your ego. Your thoughts, like your possessions, your work, your relationships, and your beliefs will all come and go. None of these things are permanent, and thus they are not you. Now, emotion. Emotions are how your body reacts to your mind. If you have not realized that you are not your mind, then it is hard to separate yourself from your emotions as well. In the same way you can consciously separate yourself from your thoughts, you can remove yourself from your emotions. For those that constantly struggle with depression, sadness, loneliness, and other negative emotions, this can be extremely powerful. Instead of focusing on what you're feeling, you can switch to focusing on the now. Remember, you are not sad, you are feeling sad. You're not depressed, you are feeling depressed. You are none of these emotions. They are simply how you are feeling at the current moment. There are exceptions to this. And the exceptions are those things that come from deep within us, like true love and joy. These are not actually emotions at all, more states of being. Unlike something like pleasure, which is derived from external sources, joy and love come from within. All of this brings us to a super important concept. Now is all there is. While you are practicing observing your mind as a separate entity, notice how much time it spends dwelling on the events of the past and worrying, speculating, and concerned with the imagined events of the future. As you soon realize that you are thinking of the past or future, you are snapped back to the present. You get back to the now. Most of the negative thoughts and feelings that we experience are due to the thoughts of what if and I should have. The future brings anxiety because we have no control over it. It is made up of possible scenarios that come from our mind. We only have control in the present moment. You can control the now, you can affect the now, and you only have power in the now. Have you ever experienced, done, thought, or felt anything outside of the now? Do you think that you ever will? Is it possible for anything to happen or be outside of the now? The answer is obvious, is it not? This also means that all problems are made up. Your mind dwells on the mistakes of the past and the uncertainty of the future. Neither of these two things happen in the moment. If you are present in the now, both the problems of the past and the potential problems of the future fade away. This doesn't mean that you will never have a bad day at work or have a problem with a friend or a partner. It means that you will be present for them and handle them in the now. Perceptions often keep us from peace. Is something negative or positive? How do you know? Your perception of an event determines whether it's good or bad, not the event itself. There is an ancient parable about a farmer who lost his horse. His neighbors came over and said, "Oh, that's too bad." And the farmer said, "Good or bad, hard to say." Days later, the horse returns and brings with it 7 wild horses. The neighbors come over now and say, "Oh, that is so good." And the farmer just shrugs and says, "Good or bad, hard to say." The next day, the farmer's son rides one of the wild horses, and he gets thrown off and breaks his leg. This time the neighbors say, "Oh, that's terrible luck." And the farmer says, "Good or bad, hard to say." Eventually, officers come knocking on people's doors, looking to draft men for the army. And they see the farmer's son and his broken leg and pass him by. And the neighbors say, "Oh, that's great luck." And the farmer says, "Good or bad, hard to say." The thing that determines this doesn't mean giving up. Far from it. What requires surrender is the emotional and mental ties that you have to any given situation. In the state of surrender, you see very clearly what needs to be done, and you take action, doing one thing at a time and focusing on one thing at a time. By surrendering all of those resistances, you can separate yourself from arguments, difficult life issues, and even illness. By doing this, you can look at each situation individually and consciously, making a decision that is best for you, not one tied to emotions or mental preferences. Remember, the moment you grasp it, there is a shift in consciousness from mind to being, from time to presence. By living in the now, you are able to find a deeper inner peace and separate yourself from negative emotions and mindset. Eckhart Tolle's book is a great spiritual guide to living in the now. Do you have a book, saying, or article you'd like to see us review and summarize? Leave your ideas in the comments below, and it might just be our next video. Also, before you leave, make sure to give our video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and hit that subscribe button and bell notifications to get notified each time we release a new animation.